Our next speaker is Max Palmer. Max is willing to explore difficult questions. Max is a Spanish and Civic Innovation double major and spent last summer living with and interviewing the people of the Caribbean island of Hispaniola to explore more deeply the historic and contemporary racial and political conflict that influences the lives of Dominican and Haitian citizens. Through his research, he confronted his own privilege, his understandings of race, citizenship, place, and conflict, and places a mirror before each of us so that we may ask similar questions about how we view ourselves and engage with others in a pluralistic society. Max's research and analysis is thoughtful and compelling and bears the potential for each of us to be more self-aware and equipped to live in places that go beyond tolerating diversity to celebrating it. Max?
Hi everyone, can you hear me okay? I've never had a lapel mic before, it's pretty cool. My name is Max Palmer. I am a Spanish and Civic Innovation double major, and I spent the last year and a half researching race, national identity, cultural identity, and conflict on the island of Hispaniola. So here's the island of Hispaniola. I'm gonna have my own fancy little laser pointer here. So you see on the western side is Haiti. Now Haiti is a really, really special country because it is one of the only, in fact I'm pretty sure it is the only successful slave revolution that has ever taken place in the New World. So that means that this half of the island is completely and 100%, well, let's not say 100%, but they are of African descent and they should be very proud of it, and I'm very proud of them too. On the eastern side of the island, you have the Dominican Republic. They speak Spanish. They're a mix of both African and Spanish European descent. And whereas this western side of the island was at one point a French colony, and so Haiti's official language was French, or is French, and they also speak Creole. So because this is such a small island, there's a lot of conflict that goes on between these two nations. And I was really interested in studying it, and here's why. In 2013, there was a Dominican court ruling that retroactively stripped Haitian Dominicans of their citizenship in the Dominican Republic. That would be like the American government coming up to me, and I'm a third-generation immigrant. My family is from Finland. It would be like the American government coming up to me and saying, you know what, Max? We think you would be a better Finnish citizen, so we're actually going to take that passport from you, and you can go back to Europe and apply for citizenship in Finland instead. That's really complicated. That's really difficult. That's also a violation of human rights, and it caused an uproar with a lot of human rights organizations as well. Oops. So what I did is I decided to hop on a plane. I went to the Dominican Republic, and I wanted to explore this for myself, because this conflict is not simply immigration-based or citizenship-based. This is a conflict based in cultural identity. This is a conflict based on race. And one thing that Emory has taught me is that I need to question my identity and my privilege as a white American male. So I was really interested to see how other people from other cultures viewed these cultural and racial differences. So see this little black thing right here? This is the icon for couchsurfing.com, and I traveled through the Dominican Republic and Haiti for the majority through couchsurfing, which was an extremely, extremely gratifying and humbling experience. I lived with these people, I ate with these people, I went to work, I went to school with these people. I mean, it was so much fun, and I wish I could describe to you guys how amazing it was. And if you can't tell by how jumbled up I get, I am just so excited about it. It was such a great experience. So what I did is I interviewed Dominicans and Haitians. I asked them what their perceptions were on race. I also met with Dominican elementary school students and high school Haitian students and had them either draw or write their perceptions of Haitians and Dominicans. And you can see one of those pictures right here, and we'll see more of them later. So before getting too deep into the conflict, there's one thing that I need you guys to understand, and that's the idea of hegemony. If there are any civic innovation majors in the crowd, I know you guys all know what hegemony is, but for the rest of you guys, it just means the messages and the ways in which society feeds to us our perceptions of our own identities, feeds our ideologies, and feeds our perceptions of others as well. Some of the words that Dominicans used in my interviews to describe Haitians come from these messages, and I'll just go through these really quick with you. One woman described Haitians as bravos, and bravos means wild or aggressive. It's very similar to saying somebody is a savage. Pobres is a word that means poor, and a lot of times this is associated with the fact that Haitians, similar to how Americans perceive Mexicans and Hispanic people immigrating here, Haitians are perceived as immigrants that come to the Dominican Republic to steal jobs for half the pay that Dominicans would ask for them. Sucios means dirty, which is another perception from Dominicans about Haitians. Prietos, please don't ever say this word to a Spanish speaker. It is the equivalent of the N-word in English, and this is just one of many racial slurs in the Spanish language. Pierre is a cultural slur. So I mentioned before, Haiti speaks French and Creole, and so therefore a very stereotypical French name is Pierre. That would be like Americans calling Mexicans Jose or Juan, and you can see some problems with that. Ordinarios is one of the most complicated words for me to have gotten a grasp on in the Spanish language, or in the Dominican language, I should say. And ordinarios represents this association with race and class that we don't necessarily have in America. It talks about how if you're ordinary, or it implies if you're ordinary, then you are of a lower class. And if you're of a lower class, you have darker skin. So Dominicans talk about Haitians as ordinary because they're perceived to be both lower class and have darker skin. So to go off of that, one person that I interviewed said that Dominicans have a Europeanized sense of beauty. One example of this is a form of discrimination that is very common in the Dominican Republic, is that when you go and take your ID picture, or when you work at a bank or another large company, if you have curly afro hair, you're expected to straighten it because curly afro hair is considered bad, pero malo, bad hair. And one example of this perception is seen in this Dominican's drawing of a Haitian, and you can see his hair there is very curly, and caco de brillo means something along the lines of sponge head, spongy hair, like a used dish sponge. So you can tell the connotation is very bad. This is an image that I received from a 9th grade Haitian student, just defining the relationship between Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And I think that really speaks for itself, but I thought it was very important to include that. This Dominican woman said that where Dominicans have their own form of living, so do Haitians, and they have a completely and totally different way of living, which just, again, is an example of this perceived cultural and racial difference. This is a picture of a Haitian immigrant in the Dominican Republic. He works in a restaurant, and he says that Dominicans are prieto just like Haitians are, which just means that he's acknowledging the similarity in racial composition between Dominicans and Haitians, because Dominicans are of African descent, although they don't always like to admit it. And he goes further on to say that although Dominicans who have darker skin are not always discriminated against, Haitians are always discriminated against, or almost always discriminated against, in his perception. On the left-hand side of the screen, here's another Dominican drawing of a Haitian. And below in the caption, it says that Haitians can do anything that a human can. And on the left, you see this contrast between a white Dominican and a black Haitian. And then next to the Haitian are these documents. And these documents are representative of the strenuous immigration process that it takes in order to legalize yourself as a Haitian in the Dominican Republic, either as a resident or as an immigrant worker or any of those things, which is a form of systematic discrimination. So you might be saying, all right, Max, I get it, this is horrible. Oh my gosh, please stop. So I've also included some other things as well. These are words that Dominicans use to describe Haitians that are good. Personas, buenos, that means people, good people. Iguales, equals, human beings, and hard workers. And those are all good, those are all positive perceptions of Haitians too. You see that in this image. This Dominican student wrote that Haitians are people, and despite their color, they are beautiful on the inside. And they can sometimes work harder than Dominicans can. So that's a very strong appreciation of Haitian value, while also trying to battle with that Dominican identity that hegemony has formed for her. Another Dominican drawing says in many different ways below here that Haitians and Dominicans are equal and they need to be treated as such. And that although some people think that Haitians and Dominicans are not equal, they need to be and they should be treated equally. This is a judge from a court in the Dominican Republic, and he says that a Haitian proceeding before me is a human being, and he requires my consideration as a person. And that's also very, very important to acknowledge that Dominicans, although sometimes they do make these generalizations about the way they perceive Haitians, when you talk about on an individual basis, most Dominicans are not going to say anything prejudiced or bad or racist about a Haitian. So it's complicated, right? And I could talk to you for hours about all of the things that this possibly could mean about the way that history and national narrative and conflict and hegemony all influence the way that we see ourselves and how other people see themselves and our identities, but I don't have time. So I'll leave you with this instead. Junot Diaz, he's a Dominican writer, a Dominican American, says, "We've lost so many words to talk about race in America that we don't even have a conversation about it. Yet in the Caribbean, there are more than 12 words that I can identify to talk about a person's color." In some ways, that's helpful because it helps when it comes time to approach the question of privilege. So what I'm leaving you with today is that through this study, I have developed an entirely new way discovered an entirely new way to understand my own privilege and my own race in my world. Thank you.